The heavy, hard-shell suitcase slammed against my shins, sending a sharp, sickening burst of pain radiating up my leg. I gasped, stumbling back against the hallway wall, clutching my calf. My mother, Catherine, didn't even blink. Her face was twisted into a mask of cold, hard rage, a look I had spent my entire life shrinking away from. The air in the hallway felt suffocating, thick with the scent of her expensive perfume, which I had paid for. "Break up with Ansel by tonight, or you are dead to us," she spat, pointing a perfectly manicured finger directly at my face. "You pack that bag, and you leave, and don't you dare think about coming back to this house." My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. The hallway seemed to spin, the photos on the wall blurring into a mess of colors. "Mom, please," I begged, my voice trembling so hard I could barely speak. "We're getting married. I love him." Before we continue, if you love our stories, do well to encourage us by hitting the like button, sharing, and subscribing for more. My name is Iona. I'm 27 years old, a senior project manager for a tech firm, and to the outside world, I look successful. But inside the walls of my parents' house, I am nothing more than a walking ATM with a pulse. "Love doesn't pay the mortgage, Iona," my father, Carl, shouted from the recliner in the living room. He didn't even look up. His indifference was worse than his anger. "That man is a distraction. Since he came around, you've been stingy. Tessa needs tuition. The house needs repairs. You leave us for him and your selfish trash." The fear of being cut off, of being an orphan in a world I wasn't ready to face alone, paralyzed me. It was conditioning deep in my bones, planted there since I was a child. Shaking, I pulled out my phone. I dialed Ansel. When he answered, sounding so happy, I felt like I was swallowing glass. "I can't do this anymore. It's over." I hung up before he could argue, sliding down the wall in tears. Catherine picked up the suitcase and put it away. She smiled, a chilling, victorious look. "I knew you were a good girl." The dynamic in our house was simple. I worked myself to the bone, and they spent every dime. 2 days after the forced breakup, my paycheck hit my account. Within 3 hours, it was gone. I sat at the sticky kitchen table, paying the electric bill, the water bill, and the car notes on my laptop, while my sisters, Kayla and Tessa, laughed in the living room browsing online stores for designer handbags they couldn't afford. "I need $500 for the car payment," my dad said, walking by and casually dropping a late notice on my keyboard. He didn't ask, he demanded. I transferred the money, watching my savings balance hover near zero yet again. Then I looked over at the corner of the kitchen. My cousin Sam, only 11 years old, was sitting on a stool eating a piece of plain, dry toast. We had taken him in after my aunt passed, but my parents treated him like a burden. I reached for my phone, opening the delivery app. "I'm ordering a pizza for Sam," I said quietly. "Put that away," my mother snapped, not even looking up from her magazine. "Save your money for the electric bill. He can eat toast. Budget is tight, Iona." I froze, the unfairness burning in my chest. I paid the bills, yet she controlled the permission to spend? "We sacrificed everything to raise you." My father, Carl, slammed his hand on the counter. "Don't be ungrateful." For the next few weeks, I was a ghost in my own life. I walked through the days like a zombie, a shell of the woman I used to be. To cope with the crushing pain of losing Ansel, I threw myself into work, clocking 60 hours a week just to stay away from the toxic air of that house. But the money from the overtime didn't stay with me. It just meant my family bought more expensive things. At night, I lay in bed and stalked Ansel's social media until my eyes burned. He looked miserable. His eyes were dark in his photos, and he had stopped posting his gym updates. It broke me every time I looked at his face. I wanted to call him, but the fear of my mother's rage kept me silent. "You look terrible," Kayla said one evening, leaning against my doorframe while I stared at my phone, tears silently tracking down my face. But at least you have your career, Iona. You're not really the wifely type anyway. Men want women who are fun, not stressed workhorses like you." She laughed and walked away, flipping her hair. I went downstairs to the kitchen to get water. As I passed the recycling bin, I saw a familiar cream-colored envelope sticking under a cereal box. My heart stopped. It was a letter, handwritten on the stationery Ansel used to buy me. I dug it out, smoothing the wrinkles. Ansel had mailed it to the house 3 days ago. "Iona, please, just talk to me. I know this isn't you." Catherine had thrown it away before I even got home. The real nightmare began on a Sunday night dinner. The air was thick with the smell of the expensive pot roast I had paid for, but I wasn't hungry enough to eat. My stomach was in knots. Kayla, who was 23 and had never held a job for longer than a month, clinked her glass with a fork, demanding attention. "I have a surprise," she squealed, holding up her hand. A diamond ring sparkled aggressively under the dining room lights. The room erupted with joy. Catherine shrieked with joy, jumping up to hug her, knocking her chair over. Tessa started crying happy tears. Even Dad stood up to shake the hand of the guy sitting next to Kayla, some man she had met at a club only 2 months ago. I sat there, frozen, gripping my napkin. I had been with Mansell for 4 years, and they made me leave him. Kayla knew this guy 8 weeks. "Oh, this is wonderful," Catherine gushed, wiping her eyes. Then her head snapped toward me. The warmth vanished from her eyes instantly, replaced with that familiar, demanding glare. "Iona, you're going to need to pick up extra shifts immediately," she said, her voice dropping to a serious business tone. "We need a lot of planning to do. We need this wedding to be the event of the year. Your sister deserves the best, and we are not cutting corners." I looked at the ring on Kayla's finger. It was huge, and I knew exactly who was going to pay for it. 2 days later, I was forced to sit in a plush office with a high-end wedding planner. Catherine and Kayla sat on the velvet sofa across from me, sipping complimentary champagne, while I sat in the hard chair with the invoice, feeling like I was on trial. The planner, a woman with a fake smile and too much perfume, slid a piece of paper across the glass table. "For the venue, catering, and flowers Kayla was, we are looking at an initial estimate of $40,000. I choked on my water, coughing. "40,000? Mom, I can't afford that. I literally don't have that kind of money saved." Catherine's eyes narrowed into slits. She set her champagne flute down with a sharp clink that echoed in the quiet room. "Don't be dramatic, Iona. Your credit score is perfect. Take a loan." "A loan?" I whispered, horrified. "You want me to go into debt for a party?" "It's not a party. It's your sister's wedding," Catherine snapped, her voice low and dangerous. "That is what family does. We support each other. Stop being jealous just because she's getting married and you aren't." I looked out the window to avoid crying. Down on the street, I saw a kid who looked just like Sam. I remembered Sam's sneakers had holes in the toes because Mom refused to buy him new ones, claiming poverty. Yet here she was, demanding I take a $40,000 loan for Kayla. A hot, red rage began to boil in my stomach. The turning point didn't happen with a bang, but with a whisper. A few days later, I came home early from work with a blinding migraine. My car was in the shop, so I had taken a cab, meaning no one heard me arrive. The house was quiet, except for voices drifting from the kitchen. I kicked off my heels and walked softly down the hall, intending to get water. Then I heard my name. "I'm just saying, Catherine," my father said, his voice low and conspiratorial. "What if she meets someone else? If she leaves, who pays for the renovation we want?" I froze. I pressed my back against the wall, my heart pounding in my ears. My mother laughed, a cruel, dismissive sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Relax, Carl," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "I've terrified her enough. She thinks she's unlovable without us. She isn't going anywhere." She paused, and I could hear the smile in her voice. She is our retirement mule. Kayla gets the life. Iona pays the bill. I will never let her marry. She is too useful right here. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud crack. It was the sound of my love for them dying. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking uncontrollably, and hit record. I captured the last 30 seconds of them laughing about using me. My tears dried up instantly. The sadness was gone. All that was left was cold, hard ice. I didn't go into the kitchen. I slipped back out the front door and walked 3 blocks to a convenience store, shivering in the evening air. I bought a cheap burner phone with cash so it wouldn't show up on the family bill. My hands were still trembling as I dialed the number I had deleted but memorized years ago. "Hello?" Ansel's voice was tired, hollow. "Don't hang up," I whispered, glancing over my shoulder to make sure no one was watching. "Just listen." I played the recording into the speaker. For a long moment, there was only silence on the line. Then I heard a sharp intake of breath. Ansel wasn't an emotional hothead. He was a civil engineer. He was logical, calm, and strategic. That is why my parents hated him. He could see through their manipulation. "Where are you?" he asked, his voice steel. "I'm at the corner store," I said. "I'm coming. We need a plan. A real one." We met in the back of a dark parking lot at midnight. I expected him to yell, but he just held me while I cried into his chest. Then he pulled back and looked me in the eyes. "We aren't just leaving, Iona. If we leave now, they'll hunt you down. We're going to play the long game. We're going to make sure they can never hurt you or Sam ever again." The next morning, I walked into the kitchen with a smile plastered on my face. It was the hardest acting performance of my life. Catherine was drinking coffee, scrolling on her tablet, looking bored. "Mom, Dad," I started, keeping my voice soft and submissive. "I did a lot of thinking. You were right about being selfish about the wedding. I'm sorry." Catherine looked up suspicious at first, then smug. "Well, I'm glad you finally came to your senses." "I have big news," I lied effortlessly, pouring myself a cup of water. "My boss offered me a massive promotion, senior VP. It comes with a huge signing bonus. It's enough to cover Kayla's wedding, the honeymoon, and pay off the rest of the mortgage." The change in the room was instant. The greed flared in their eyes like a lit match. Carl put down his paper, his eyes widening. "When does this money come in?" "About 6 weeks, just in time for the wedding," I said. They didn't congratulate me. They didn't ask about the new job duties or the stress. They just looked at each other, mentally spending the money. "Good," Catherine said, relaxing back into her chair. "Then we can upgrade the flower package. Kayla really wanted the orchids." They took the bait. Now I just had to reel them in. A week later, I initiated the financial trap. I sat down with my dad, holding a stack of papers I had printed out. They looked official, full of graphs and tax jargon I knew he wouldn't understand. "Dad, there's a small issue with the bonus," I said, looking worried. "Because my income is going to jump so high, it's going to mess up the household taxes. I'll be in a huge tax bracket." "So what?" he grunted. "So, my accountant said the best way to save money is to refinance the house and the cars into your name." I pointed to a highlighted line. "The house has gained a lot of value in the last 5 years. If we refinance using that equity as collateral, the bank will approve you based on your pension. Plus, if you're the sole head of household on the title, you get the senior tax exemptions. It could save us $15,000 a year." Carl's eyes lit up. He loved feeling like the man of the house, even though I paid for everything. The idea of getting a tax break and the status blinded him completely. "That makes sense," he said. "How fast can we do it?" "I'll pay the expedited rush fee," I assured him. "We can close in 3 weeks." Over the next 3 weeks, I meticulously walked them through the process. I removed my name from the mortgage, the car loans, and the utility bills. I told them I was consolidating for the bonus. In reality, I was legally severing every financial tie I had to them. While my parents were distracted by their new ownership and the upcoming wedding, I turned my attention to the most important person in that house, Sam. I couldn't just leave him there. If I left, he would become their new punching bag, or worse, they would toss him into the foster system. I started keeping a detailed journal. Every meal he skipped, every time he wore clothes with holes in the toes, and every verbal insult Catherine threw at him was documented with dates and times. I'm going to take Sam to a special tutoring program on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I told Catherine. It keeps you out of your hair while you plan the wedding. Fine, she waved her hand. Just don't expect me to pay for it. The tutoring was actually visits to a child advocate lawyer Ansel had found. We took Sam to get a physical exam, documenting his malnutrition and the untreated cavities in his teeth. We were building a mountain of objective medical evidence. I explained to Sam that we were working on a secret mission. "Are you going to take me with you?" he asked one day in the car, his eyes wide and fearful. "I promise, Sam," I said, gripping the steering wheel. "I'm not leaving this family without you." Before I tell you how I trapped my greedy family in their own web of lies and executed the most satisfying revenge plan of my life, I have to ask, if you have come with us this far, it means you are really invested in Iona's fight for freedom. Please do well to like this video, share it with friends who love satisfying revenge stories, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a part. Also, tell us in the comments where you're listening from. We love seeing our global community. Thank you. The financial bleeding began at the bridal boutique. Kayla had tried on 20 dresses before she came out in a gown that cost $8,000. She twirled in front of the mirror, ignoring the price tag. "This is it," she announced. "Iona, get the card." I walked to the register, my heart racing. I inserted my debit card, knowing full well I had lowered the daily spending limit to $50 that morning. The machine beeped. Declined. "What is this?" Catherine snapped, looming over my shoulder. "You're embarrassing us." "It's the bank," I said, putting on a stressed performance. "Because of the promotion and the huge bonus transfer pending, they put a security freeze on big purchases until next week. I can't unlock it until Monday." Kayla started to wail. "But I need it now. Someone else will buy it." "Mom," I said, turning to Catherine, "just put it on your card for now. As soon as my bonus clears on Friday, I'll pay off your entire credit card bill. You'll get the reward points, too." Catherine hesitated, calculating. She always pleaded poverty when it came to Sam's shoes or the electric bill, but when it came to her vanity, she mysteriously had credit available. She pulled out her card. "Fine, but you transfer that money the second it hits." She swiped. The debt was hers. The biggest trap was the venue. We toured the Silver Lake Estate, a place that cost $25,000 just to unlock the doors. "You're lucky," the manager told us, tapping his clipboard. "Another couple canceled for the 14th yesterday. If you want a Saturday wedding in 6 weeks, this is the only opening I have for 2 years." Catherine gasped. "It's fate!" We sat in the manager's office. The contract was on the table. "We need a signature and a deposit today to hold the date," the manager said. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a fake alarm I had set. "Oh my God, it's the CEO. I have to take this, or I lose the bonus." I stood up, inching toward the door. "Mom, you sign it. You're the hostess of the event anyway. It looks better for the guests. I'll wire the deposit directly to the venue tomorrow morning." Catherine's vanity was her weakness. She loved seeing her name as the hostess. She didn't even read the fine print regarding cancellation fees. She grabbed the pen and signed her name with a flourish. "Don't forget the wire transfer," she called out as I walked into the hallway. "I won't," I called back. I walked to the bathroom, leaned against the sink, and breathed. She had just signed a legally binding contract for $25,000. I wasn't going to send a dime. Later, I emailed the manager a forged bank authorization letter claiming the wire was processing, which bought us time so he wouldn't cancel the reservation immediately. While they were busy planning centerpieces and tasting cake samples, I was planning my life. I had secretly applied for a transfer within my company 3 months prior, but I told them I needed to go to the branch 800 miles away. My boss, who knew about my home situation, had approved it quietly. The hardest part was moving without anyone noticing. I couldn't pack boxes. If they saw a suitcase, they would lock me in the house. So I did the gym bag method. Every morning, I left for work with a large gym bag. Going to the gym before work, I'd say. Inside, buried under a gym towel, were my birth certificate, my passport, my grandmother's vintage necklace, and my hard drive. I drove to a storage locker I had rented, dumped the items, and went to work. Piece by piece, I was emptying my room. I signed a lease on a new apartment in the new city, using a friend's address to keep my name off public databases. Every night, I came home to a slightly emptier room, but my family was too self-absorbed to notice that my shelves were bare. They only saw me as a wallet, not a person. I almost got caught 3 days before the end. I had to meet Ansel to hand over some documents for Sam's custody case. We met in the parking lot of a grocery store 2 towns over, thinking it was safe. I was leaning into his car window, handing him a thick envelope, when a horn honked behind me. My blood ran cold. It was Tessa's bright red convertible. She pulled up, lowering her sunglasses. "I knew it," she sneered. "You're seeing him again? Mom is going to kill you." My mind raced. If she told Mom, they would freeze me out before I could get Sam. I had to think fast. "No," I said, forcing a laugh. "Tessa, don't be stupid. Ansel works for a courier service now. I'm doing a side job delivering legal papers for extra cash for Kayla's honeymoon. I was just handing off a package." Tessa looked at the envelope, then at me. She rolled her eyes. "Dot, you are such a workhorse. Are you working a second job? You really have no life, do you?" "Just trying to make the wedding perfect," I said. "Whatever, you're pathetic." She laughed and drove off. I exhaled, my knees shaking. Her cruelty had just saved me. It was 1 week before the wedding. The house was chaotic with a last-minute prep. I was in the hallway when I heard my parents talking in the den. The door was cracked open. "What about the boy?" asked Carl. "With Iona paying for the renovation after the wedding, we need his room for the home theater." "We'll just put Sam back in the system," Catherine said casually, as if she were talking about returning a pair of shoes. "He's getting too big anyway. He eats too much. Once Iona pays off the mortgage next week, we don't need the state's subsidy check for him anymore. We'll call the social worker on Monday." I stood there, feeling sick. They weren't just neglecting Sam, they were planning to discard him the moment he wasn't profitable. I hit stop on my phone recording. This was it. This was the smoking gun. I sent the audio file immediately to the child advocate and the social worker we had been coordinating with. "We have them," Ansel texted me back 2 minutes later. "It's over. We move on Thursday." I looked at my parents' door. Yes, I thought. It is over. It was 3 days before the wedding, and the house felt like a ticking bomb wrapped in silk. The atmosphere was manic. My parents were high on the anticipation of my bonus, which I had told them would hit my account on Friday morning, 24 hours before the ceremony. The venue manager had called twice, demanding the final payment. I had smoothed it over by sending him a fake screenshot of a pending wire transfer and promising him an extra rush fee if he waited until Friday morning. Because he didn't want to lose a massive booking, he agreed to the extension. Thinking the money was guaranteed, my parents lost all control. Catherine added a $5,000 champagne tower to the reception. Carl rented 3 vintage Rolls Royces for the bridal party transportation. "Sign here, sir," the rental agent said, standing in our driveway. "Put it on the tab," Carl laughed, signing his name with a flourish. "My daughter is clearing the accounts on Friday." I watched from the kitchen window, sipping tea to calm my nerves. They were racking up bills that totaled nearly $60,000, all legally signed in their names. "You're gonna look so rich," Kayla squealed, hugging Mom. "We are rich," Catherine corrected her. "Or we will be once Iona handles the transfer." I set my mug down. "Enjoy it. It's the last time you'll smile." Thursday morning arrived. The house was eerily silent. Catherine, Kayla, and Tessa had left at dawn for an all-day spa package, another expense they charged to a credit card Catherine expected me to pay off. Carl was out golfing. I moved fast. I threw the last of my toiletries into my bag. I left my bed made, my closet doors open, and my keys on the dresser. I didn't leave a note. Not yet. I drove to Sam's school. My hands gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. When I pulled up, I wasn't alone. Ansel was there, parked behind me. Next to him was the social worker and a police officer. The judge had reviewed the months of medical evidence regarding Sam's malnutrition and dental neglect. When we added the recording of my parents explicitly planning to abandon him next week, he signed the emergency removal order immediately. I walked into the office, my heart in my throat. When Sam saw me, he looked confused. "Get your bag, buddy," I said, my voice shaking. "We're going on a trip." "Are we coming back?" he asked. I looked at the social worker, who nodded at me. I looked back at Sam. No, never. We got into Ansel's car. His trunk was already weighed down with the boxes he had cleared from my storage unit earlier that morning. I left my old sedan in the school lot. The title was in Carl's name now anyway. Let him deal with the tow truck. We hit the highway, and I didn't look in the rearview mirror once. Friday, the day the money was due. We were 800 miles away, crossing state lines into our new life. At 9 a.m., my phone began to buzz. It started with a text from Catherine. "Iona, the bank app says 0. Transfer the bonus. The venue manager is screaming at me." Then a call from Carl, then Kayla, then Tessa. The buzzing was incessant, vibrating against the console of the car. I watched the notifications roll in, turning from confusion to panic, finally to rage. "Pick up the phone! They are threatening to cancel the wedding. The manager says the grace period is over. Where are you?" I pulled over at a rest stop. I opened the family group chat for the last time. I attached 2 audio files, the recording of them calling me their retirement mule, and the recording of them planning to dump Sam. Then I typed one final message. "I am not your mule. Sam is safe with me. The debts, the venue, the dress, and the mortgage are all in your names. You wanted the credit, you got it. Good luck." I hit send. Then I removed the SIM card from the burner phone, snapped it in half, and threw it into a trash can. I didn't need to be there to know what happened next. The fallout was explosive enough to reach me through mutual acquaintances and social media. The wedding was canceled 24 hours before the ceremony. The venue manager, realizing the wire transfer was never coming, locked the doors. Kayla had a public meltdown on Facebook, blaming thieves and liars, but the damage was done. Guests had already flown in, only to find out there was no wedding. The financial ruin was swift. Since I hadn't transferred a dime, Catherine's credit cards, maxed out on dresses and deposits, defaulted immediately. The creditors didn't care about their family drama. They just wanted their money. Worst of all for them was the house. Because I had tricked Carl into refinancing the mortgage solely in his name, using the equity as a collateral, he was now 100% liable for a loan he couldn't afford on his pension alone. They tried to tell the police I had stolen from them, but I hadn't. I had simply stopped paying for things I didn't own. They had signed every single contract themselves. They were left with a mountain of debt, a shattered reputation, and a silent house. Months later, the morning sun streamed into our kitchen. It was quiet, peaceful. There was no screaming, no demands for money, no guilt. Sam sat at the island, eating a huge bowl of cereal, laughing at a cartoon. He had gained weight, his cheeks were full, and he finally looked like a happy child. Ansel walked in and kissed my forehead. "Ready?" "Ready," I smiled. We were getting married that afternoon at the courthouse. No $80,000 reception, no guests who didn't care about us. Just us, Sam, and 2 witnesses. My phone chimed with an old automated Zillow alert I had set years ago and forgotten to disable. I glanced at the screen. My parents' house, the house I had paid for since I was 22, was listed for foreclosure auction. The bank had seized it. I felt a phantom pang of guilt, but then I looked at Sam, safe and happy. I looked at Ansel, who loved me for me, not my paycheck. I swiped the notification away, without emotion. "Iona?" asked Ansel. "Everything okay?" I put the phone down and took his hand. "Everything is perfect. Let's go get married." I had lost a toxic family, but I had won my life.
This story isn't just about a wedding disaster or financial revenge. It is a powerful reminder that family is defined by love and respect, not just blood. Iona struggled because she believed that her value as a human being was tied to how much she could sacrifice for people who refused to sacrifice for her. She thought setting boundaries was selfish, when in reality, it was necessary for her survival. The lesson: you are not an insurance policy for your parents, and you are not a bank for your siblings. True loyalty is a two-way street. If the only time your family loves you is when you are paying the bill, that is not love. That is a transaction. Don't be afraid to walk away from people who benefit from your pain. Sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is break the cycle, protect the innocent like Sam, and build a life where you are valued for who you are, not what you can provide. Thank you so much for following Iona's journey from the family mule to the architect of her own freedom. It was an emotional ride of justice and liberation, and we hope you felt every moment of her triumph. If you enjoyed this story and love hearing about people who stand up to toxic families and win, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Tell us in the comments, do you think Iona went too far by leaving them with the debt? Or did they get exactly what they deserved? Type Team Silent Exit if you think she did the right thing by saving herself and Sam. See you in the next story.